Hi, everybody, and welcome aboard to Local Matters, where living local never felt so darn good. You know, discrimination, racism, and unconscious bias remain relevant issues, and for many, it is happening right where they spend the greater part of their lives 5 days a week, and that is in the workplace. It really can be overwhelming if you discover you are being discriminated against. But one local woman was not afraid to put her boxing gloves on when she found out she was discriminated against. In fact, she took her fight all the way to the Supreme Court, and when we come back, we're going to meet her. Because you know why? If it's local, it matters.
Dance. Let me see you move.
Love never felt so good. Can't I die, be never good. Not like you. Oh.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us. Welcome back to Local Matters. You know, discrimination, racism, and unconscious bias remain relevant issues that can happen to anyone, especially in the workplace, especially if you are a minority or a woman. Joining me today is a local woman who found out she was discriminated against, and she took her fight all the way to the Supreme Court. She is also the co-author of Grace and Grit, My Fight for Equal Pay and Fairness at Goodyear and Beyond, which was published in February of 2012. Please help me welcome Miss Lily Ledbetter. It's so great to have you aboard here on Local Matters.
Thank you. It's great to be here in Local Matters.
Yes, you know what? It's not every day that someone's fight makes it all the way to the Supreme Court, and yours did. But before we really get going on your story, I want to listen into what President Barack Obama said about your fight. Let's
Okay.
listen in.
The first bill I signed was something called the Lily Ledbetter Bill. And this is named after this amazing woman who had been doing the same job as a man for years, found out that she was getting paid less, and the Supreme Court said that she couldn't bring suit because she should have found out about it earlier. And that's an example of the kind of advocacy that we need, because women are increasingly the breadwinners in the family.
Wow. Mrs. Ledbetter, what did Goodyear say? You should have found out about it earlier, that's it. They thought they were just going to toss your fight out, and that was going to be the end of it. But you said, "Oh no, not me." Tell me a little bit about what happened there at Goodyear.
Dottie, I went to work with Goodyear and had worked there for 19 years, working what had normally been considered a man's job, but it was a great job for a female, and as long as you were good in management, and I liked it, and I enjoyed my job. But after 19 years, someone slipped me a note and let me know that I was being paid 30 to 40% less than my male counterparts.
Wow.
And that just floored me when I got that note, because I first thought about all of my pay that had been so discriminately too low, and then I thought about the overtime hours, the time and a half, the double, the triple, how much money I had lost because I worked an enormous amount of overtime. And then I thought about my retirement, my 401k, my contributory retirement, and my Social Security. All that is dependent on what an individual is making. And I was just floored. I was so devastated and humiliated. I just didn't see how I would get through my 12-hour shift, but I did.
The fact that you were sitting there, you said 12 hours, you know, and most people in your case would have been floored, as you said. As you mentioned, they would have been so upset. They probably would have gone home, done a bunch of complaining. They may have gotten on the phone and told a whole bunch of people about it. They may have gone back to work the next day with an attitude. None of that changes anything. You didn't exactly do any of those things. I mean, you said you went home and you talked to your husband. Tell me about that portion of it.
I did, and by the time I got home, I had thought it through, and I explained to my husband, who was already retired, and I was 2 years away from retirement. I said, I must file a charge with the Equal Employment Commission unless you object. And I will warn you, if I start, you know I'm not a quitter, and we will be in this for at least 8 years. Well, that result took 9 years. It took me 9 years from the time I went to Birmingham, Alabama, and filed that charge until I got the final verdict. I had a great result in the local federal court with jury decision. I won $3.8 million, but then the
Wow.
Supreme Court took it away. So Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg challenged Congress to change it back. She said this grave injustice cannot stand. And so she said the ball is in your court. And they started working immediately on changing the law back.
Right. So, and again, you said, I'm not going to let this happen. I'm just not going to let this die. I have got to keep fighting because, as you mentioned, even your retirement was contingent upon that.
That's true.
Contingent upon that pay. And so, and you mentioned that, well, you said that you were the only woman that on that shift working there.
Right.
And you don't know who it was that gave you a tip. Because so oftentimes, and it still happens today, when you are hired in corporate, a lot of times they will say, well, we don't discuss pay here. I've even been hired in positions, and I've gone on into orientation, and they would say, I would sign my contract, and then they would say to me, no, we don't discuss our pay. We don't discuss pay here. That's pretty routine.
That's what the Goodyear did. They said if you discuss your pay, you will not have a job. So no one ever did. And all through those 19 years, I couldn't find out if my pay was equal to what the other people were getting, the raises through the years. And as you know, that's another point we need to point out to the listeners today. Raises are normally a percentage of what that individual makes. So if they start out behind or they fall behind, they can't catch up. It's gone, and it's gone forever. And that's so critical to people, and young people especially. They just don't understand. But that was the rule. Do not discuss your pay. And had that whistleblower not given me that little note, I would have retired and gone on for the rest of my life, never knowing.
Never knowing.
But I'm so glad that I knew. I'm so glad I walked this road. In the end, I didn't get a dime, and it's been really hard on me and my family. We've sacrificed, but you know what it did? It opened the doors for numerous people to get large awards from their employers. It's also opened the doors to the employer's office, and they're saying, hey, what are we doing here? Let's make this right. Let our people know, and they have a better team, and they're more successful, and the bottom line comes out greater each time. I can't say enough for a company named Salesforce. I've had the opportunity to be with them in ITT up in New York. I've asked them a time, one world major bank. I've asked them, I said, if I were younger, I'd want to fill out an application because that's who I would love to work for.
And you know what? I want us to talk more about Salesforce. When we come back, we've got to go to break. But I also want to talk a little bit about what was happening on the other levels, because this was happening at the management level, but the other levels, they were being represented by a union, I understand.
That's correct.
So I want to talk more about that. We'll be right back with more Local Matters. Hi, everybody. Welcome on back to Local Matters. If you're just joining us here at Local Matters, I am sitting here with Miss Lilly Ledbetter. She is known for fighting for women and for minorities, and she's known for her fight for equal pay. Miss Lilly, welcome back. You know, if you're just joining us, you were talking with us and sharing with us the stories that you faced when you were at Goodyear. You thought that you were being paid the same amount as your male counterparts, and you realized that you were not. And you decided to do it because most people would have said, I can't fight this. That's Goliath. I'm just little old David. I can't fight against Goodyear, but you did. Now there's so many, and you're sharing with me that it wasn't easy for you either. How did the people there at the company begin to treat you once? Because sometimes when you stand up for yourself, people won't always stand with you.
No, they didn't. They treated me like I had a deadly disease. They wouldn't speak to me. One person said that it was not job security to speak to me, and if I met a person in a hall, they turned and went the other way. I worked another probably 10 months, and they offered an early buyout. I was sort of pushed into it, because, and that's another story for another day. But the treatment, I knew what it would be like. I knew it would be hard, and I knew the length of the time that it would be hard on my family. But an individual is tough and strong, and if you think things through and you know it's the right thing, this was the right thing to do. The movement from this across this United States was unbelievable when that verdict came out from the Supreme Court.
Yeah, because you weren't just fighting for you at this point anymore. You
No.
were fighting now for all the other Lilly Ledbetters out here
Right.
in this country and beyond who were watching. So
That's
it
right.
became a bigger fight, not just about you, but for other people who are working jobs every day and hoping that they're going to get advancements and they're going to get pay increases and thinking that they're being paid fair, and they're not.
They're not, that's right. And actually, you're exactly right. You stated that extremely well. By the time the verdict came out and the fight went on, it was no longer about Lilly Ledbetter. The only thing I got out of this, I got my name on a law and a bill, and that's unusual. They tell me the lawyers do in this state. I'm probably the only Alabamian with a law named for me.
Yes.
Because it's rare. But
Yes.
I did get the recognition, and I did have to work, Dottie, because there's so many people that tell me their stories and share how shortchanged they are. Some women, single mothers, are working 2 jobs and a day on the weekend, and they still can't make all their bills. This is not right in this country.
No,
I've
it's
talked
not.
to women that got promoted, and they get promoted in a big job from 35,000 secretary to 85,000 investment, but the 2 men they hired started at 125. Now why? She was already trained because she had been there. This must stop. This must stop because it is hurting our country, it's hurting our youth and our nation as a whole. Because when women really succeed, the country does. And when women are paid fairly and equitably, and what I love about what I do today, the men get it. They understand it because they come up and they hug me and they say, thank you for my daughters, thank you for my wife, she
Yes,
got a raise.
that's right.
And you know, that's the thrilling part of this.
Yes.
And it was good because the Ledbetter Bill 2 was sponsored and co-sponsored by Republicans and Democrats.
Alike,
and it was
yes.
voted in to law by both, and both was at the White House when that bill was signed. And that's so outstanding because I don't think there's been another bill in Washington that has passed like that since the Ledbetter Bill.
And that is just absolutely amazing. And the fact you mentioned too that men were so excited about it, because it's not just women too. There are men who are working jobs and not being treated, and they're being discriminated against too. It's not
That's
just
true.
women. There are men out here who are, and that's probably why they were coming around and wrapping their arms around you and saying, "Yes, girl, you go."
Yeah.
You go, girl. You know, and so you're not sitting down now. Your fight, as we mentioned, it's there. It's law, but that's not enough for you to sit back on your laurels and say, "Well, that's it for me. I've
No.
done it." You're out here on the speaking circuit, and before we went to break, you mentioned there is a company that if you were younger. If you were just 20 years younger, you would work for them in a heartbeat, Salesforce. Tell us a little bit about that company and why you would do that.
I've been exposed to them in 2 of their huge conferences, and they treat their people equitably and fairly. And how that program came about, they thought they had a program but 2 of their women, top women, decided that they should go speak to the man who started it and to make sure that they were getting treated fairly. They said, we may lose our job, but they made an appointment with him and sat down with him and explained it. And he said, I couldn't believe it because I thought I was treating everybody fairly. Well, when they looked into it, it cost him millions and millions, the company, and to get everybody equitably and equal. But those people going to a conference where they all those Salesforce people, they will run all over you because they're so enthused about their job. Everybody in every classification is getting exactly what their experience and what they bring to the job and what their pay should be. And equal pay, a lot of people think it means, well, if he gets $20, she gets $20. That's not exactly the way it works. The law means that you will get paid according to your
specific skills,
right,
or
and the job,
your skill
and
set.
Salesforce, every year they sit down They have a certain time of the year that they analyze and go through all the payroll. And a lot of people have to be adjusted. One of the girls I was working with, she had gotten hired from another large corporation, and all of a sudden she gets this huge raise. Well, when she started, the person that started her at the wrong classification. So she got a huge raise, just
like that.
Nobody asked her anything. That's the kind of company you want to work for. And that's not the only one. That's just one of the most successful that's out there every day making headlines.
I like that. When we come back, I want to talk more about what's going on at Salesforce and other companies, because as you mentioned, it's not the only one. But I like that because when companies realize, you know what, we may not have it all right here. Let's go back and let's work to see what we can do to get it right, because it may cost us more on the back end if we don't. You know, if we end up having to go to court. So why don't we just get it right now? So I like that. When we come back, I want to talk about some other companies. We'll be right back with more Local Matters. Hi everybody, welcome on back to Local Matters, where living local never felt so good. If you're just joining us, I've been sitting here all morning long talking with the infamous Miss Lilly Ledbetter. If anyone knows her story, they know that she is a woman that's all about business, and she's not afraid. She's not afraid to fight and take on a fight, especially when it really matters. This is what this woman is all about, and she's out here now. She's not sitting back and resting on her laurels. She's actually still out here now on the speaker's circle, going around empowering women and inspiring women every day. And I'm just honored to have you here on my show.
Thank you.
I definitely am. You know, you mentioned before we went to break that there are so many great companies out here that women and people should look to when it comes. They get it right, is what you're telling me. They get it right. They're working to make sure that people are paid based upon their specific skill set, based upon their education and things of that nature. You've been speaking with Salesforce on the speaker's circuit with Salesforce,
Right.
I understand.
I have. I've worked with them in a couple of their huge conferences, and I've been to Forbes Summit. They do a huge summit, and that for women, and it helps bring women up to par. And to get them on board and spread the word. And I've met a lot of people that heads up other corporations that are just as good as Salesforce. Of course, Salesforce is so out front right now, but I encourage young people or anyone considering a job change, research, go online, look them up, talk to people, try to talk to someone who works for that corporation.
Yes.
You can get a feel. And you can read people what they tell you, if they're telling you honestly back how that works. And so many companies today, they have put in programs specifically geared for women and families, like for small children and sick leave and paid days
all
off.
of that matters
That
so
matters
much.
so greatly.
I
matters.
don't mean to cut you off, Ms. Ledbetter, but I want to bring up a full screen that I have, because we don't have too much longer here. It's going by so fast. But it's not just pay, as you mentioned earlier here in the show, that you can be discriminated against on a job. These are some other areas. If you're listening, please take a look at this full screen, because you could be discriminated against, and we know people that have been working the same job 10 years and never got an increase or nothing.
That's true.
Never got a job classification increase. Their career ladder has just been stagnant. These type of things, tenure denials, failure to respond to requests for raises.
Right.
You know, these are things that audiences should be listening to. You are here to tell us that there are great companies, and as you mentioned, when you are coming into the door into these companies, look to see what type of perks and incentives are there in place for people.
Right. That's what you need to do, because you need to dig deep, because this will affect you not only today, but tomorrow and the rest of your life.
Yes, it will. And I thank you so much, because I thank you so much for coming aboard, inspiring,
thank you for having me.
Empowering me, because it really does, really does affect you. I mean, a lot of times you go in, you're 20, 30 years old, and you're thinking, I'm not going to worry as long as I get a nice paycheck. But if you're not getting exactly what's due to you, you really can hurt yourself in the long run. We hope that this show has inspired you and empowered you in a way that if you feel that you're not being paid the way that you should be paid, then don't be hesitant about going to talk to someone in human resources, okay?
Right.
Because you know why? If it's local, it matters. We'll see you back here next week. Good night, everybody.